very happy to welcome our first speaker for today. Professor Alena LEDENEVA is a professor of politics and society at the University College London, founder of the Global Informality Project, and a former fellow from our institute in 2013-2014. Her talk is called Informality 50 Years On. Yes, thank you so much for joining us, and feel free to share your screen.
Hello. Thank you very much for the time and for your presence. Greti, it's amazing to see you. I'm so delighted because Greti was the director of the Institute when I first came in 2013, 2014. And I was actually going to say a few words about how this project on the global informality of encyclopedia has actually emerged at the Institute. And originally, some of you would know that my background is in Russian studies, and I started with analyzing the end of the Soviet Empire back in the 90s with the analysis of blood, which is the grassroots practice of exchange of favors. And then I quickly followed up with new informal practices that have emerged once the oppressive regime has fallen. And since 2000, I was looking into the workings of informal power within the Kremlin. And that was really my background. So when I came to the Institute at in 2013, and my book has just come out, I started looking at informality in a comparative way, in a historical way, in a globalized way, trying to figure out the complexity that informal practices might have in other countries. And I was intrigued to see that Russia was a very informal country, and I knew it well, so I could see it. But when I would come to other countries, I would not be able to see it so clearly. And on the crossovers of those two perspectives, I started thinking about open secrets and hidden practices and unwritten rules, which are absolutely clear for outsiders, but closed for clear for insiders, but closed for outsiders. And that really created that specific angle with which I approached informality within the framework of the Global Informality Project. And it is actually at the Institute that my fellows have helped me with think about how to focus in an interdisciplinary way, which is a paradox already. How would I know if I were wrong, and how to use network expertise in order to adjust your own vision of your findings. And I also trained myself how to structure, how to see patterns, how to think what it is. Any instance of informal activity that I would find in the world, I would try to pin it down to some kind of deep structure or fundamental structure. So that was a really formative year. Needless to say, it also took place in Paris, which is the home of many encyclopedias, and it helped a lot spiritually. So I also am grateful to the fellows of the Institute for actually introducing me to creating a domain name, to buying hosting services, and everything that actually became the beginning of this Global Informality Project Online, which now covers 5 continents, over 90 countries, and includes a lot of international researchers who helped me to find out how I was wrong in terms of informality all over the globe. It's organized very simply, the site, so you could see this is the home page. There is also online portal where everything is searchable, and then there are published volumes in the left menu where you could see the 3 volumes of the encyclopedia that have come out in these 10 years. So it's really been a journey, and of course we take collectively and also individually quite a lot from the existing literature, not just 50 years on, but before. And what I would like to say that the angle of the project has been really pitched along the lines of Douglas North emphasis on informal institutions, sort of shifting from top down to bottom up, following the Elinor Ostrom step and her groundbreaking research into the commons and how ordinary people could be capable of creating rules and institutions. So which is turning from observers to participants' point of view. And finally, in the 3rd volume, what we've also done, we looked at how disciplinary methods might be missing something and how it is essential to work with all of them in order to focus on particular problem solving. So that's exactly what we've assembled and tried to do in volume 3. We've also tried to pay tribute to the classical literature in urban studies and also in informal economy. Professor Keith Hart, who first published his work on informal sector and informal employment in Accra, Ghana in 1973. In fact, he is a very rare case of an academic professor whose work was published by the International Law Organization before his actual academic work. So the impact has taken place before the actual academic publication. And his insights into the workings of informality have been really essential for setting up the field of informal economy and also urban planning. In my case, what I have tried to do sort of 50 years since 1973 is to complicate the vision of informality a little bit, not just focusing on informal economy or informal settlements or economies of favors or informal exchanges or informal governance or informal networks, all those key concepts that dominate certain disciplinary method, but actually try and see what we are going to get if we put them all together. And we actually tried this technique in addressing the novel problems that have emerged and novel instruments that have appeared. And as you probably know, the world has, as we knew it, ended in December 2022, and the new world has started with linguistic algorithms and the digital transformation. We had same year, 2022, a bit earlier, political divide in the world over Russia's invasion to Ukraine. We now have a new war in the Middle East. We have really radical changes associated with informational technology, informational wars, but also political correctness, self-censorship, everything that changes the balance, certainly in the Western world. We've got new organizational divides in the world. We've got regulatory changes that take place along the sanctions, logistics, and responses to them. So those massive changes somehow always put pressure on the workings of formal institutions that are slow to change or quick to legislate, but slow to implement. And that's where informality is really becoming a much quicker type of instrument. And it was interesting for me to see how it works in problem-solving capacity. Now, leading this project, and it's actually quite massive. I don't know if you could see it. I've got this third volume, which is the thickest of all. There is a first volume, which is the thinnest of all. And I've got a second one, which is one in the middle. And once I stuck them all together, you know, they're really quite massive and cover me really well. And they're quite heavy too. And all that data set is really begs to be analyzed with the very simple question, so what? And this is exactly the purpose of my presence in Paris again. I am aiming to actually see what are the patterns emerging from these volumes. On the slide, you see, for example, some numbers where you could see how many countries and territories have reached out to the Encyclopedia of Informality. And I could split and see statistics in a detailed way in terms of timing and in terms of place of access. You could see that these are not the newest numbers, but there are about 160,000 downloads of the encyclopedia at the moment. The third volume is growing up very quick. And what I am planning to do, and this is just the complexity of the team that has worked on the third volume. But what we have done in the project, we try to establish links between different area studies and between different disciplines in order to capture forms of informality which might have not been addressed or viewed in the context of similar practices elsewhere. So that's what I call a context-sensitive comparison of informal practices. So we look, for example, here at this slide at the way in which we've attempted mapping of informal practices with help of artificial intelligence, with the help of the World Economic Forum Strategic Insights and Contextual Intelligence team. So what we have done as a team of a Horizon 2020 Marie Curie International Training Network with fellows is to, on the left circle, to try to see how we could complement informal economy and informal settlements and informal networks and informal institutions and informal governance and informal exchanges with wider set of complex issues. And these maps are interactive. So you basically want to maybe get onto the website and pick on the form of informality that you're interested in, and it will take you to the implications and others which are associated with it. If you say, for example, press on informal exchanges highlighted in blue, it you could see that it's really depends on and connected to a lot of corporate problems in the world, but also migration, for example. Once we jump to the migration map, which is a circle in the middle, again, we could see what kind of aspect we are thinking about at the moment. So the contexts emerge and kind of allow us to see the complexity and strategy behind informal problems. And this is just the beginning. We've just done it very recently. We created these interactive maps to see how it works. For me, it was particularly fascinating because I wanted to see the patterns and to see if the patterns that I have manually, as it were, identified in the 3 volumes of the encyclopedia, whether it would be possible to verify, to cross-check, or to identify new patterns with help of the artificial intelligence. And that's where I need really a lot of help from the fellows, because I know this year we've got a lot of fellows with specialty in AI, and I would be very open to any help I could get that way. So, but to go back to the paper and the way in which I was going to address the issue of 3 big volumes and the database that was assembled from all over the globe with help of over 600 researchers, I would like to boil it down to the understanding of informality studies agenda and see what we collectively have to bring to the world, as it were, how we could assist with problem-oriented approach in policy making, how we could advance the idea of mapping, probably mapping rather than indexing, how we see the drivers of informality studies in the future, and what kind of skills scholars would need to acquire to study informality. So I think my time is over. This is a very quick sketch, and I didn't bring you too much ethnography today because it's online, and those people who would love to see informal practices in pictures, that is possible. And I would be very grateful for your questions.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Yes, we have a question from Sadi.
Right. So thank you very much, Alena, for this talk. I actually had two questions. The first one is about what you said about what happens when larger societies crumble in the beginning. And I was wondering if we talked about the global problems with war and the change of regimes. So one of my questions would be, is informality always local? Right, so which might account for its resistance where larger systems crumble or change. And another one, which is more methodological, is that you say you're orienting towards sort of more problem solving, and I was wondering, with this fabulous initiative with hundreds of people and all this new encyclopedia online, have you created a format to describe what is informality for all these things that you have in your cases?
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Paulus, do we answer straight away? How do we go?
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay, I will start with describing informality for the project. Maybe it makes more sense, as I should have thought of it and have given definition in the beginning. We define informality as an umbrella term, and you could see that it's an umbrella that was visible on the World Economic Forum strategic map as combination of everything that disciplines have come up with. So sociology with informal networks, social anthropology with informal practices, political science, informal governance, informal economy and economists. So, but you see in the middle, it's a hollow hole saying informality, and that's exactly the black hole of informality which we could approach from different conceptual standpoints, but it's actually quite impenetrable and complex. So what I think for operationalization for myself, it's an umbrella term. It's really something that could be generally defined as the way of getting things done. And it's actually has worked so far for everyone, because when you say to people, you know, it's something that you know in your society, outsiders do not know. It's also something which is the way of getting things done for informal problem solving for human needs, as it were. The question is whether informality is always local is an excellent one, because we would want to think that. That's exactly one of our kind of traps, that we think informality is banal. Informality is not essential. It has to be stamped out of human life. Although after COVID, I think I hear less of those kind of things. And I think a lot of people got that understanding that if you are losing that informality within the corridors of bureaucracy, bureaucracy will collapse as well. So there are, you know, really big changes at the moment in the world of informality associated with, you know, the bigger picture. But I would say, although ethnographically, this is how we catch informality, it is local. But I would like to think that it's actually plays such a key role as a glue to human societies that it would be unfair to brand it as local. And I think it would be maybe also interesting for you to look up those entries in the project which have a cyber informality tag on them. And when you look at the cyber informality, what you see that it's not local at all, but the pattern of the workings of the informal is very similar. I don't know if I answered yet, but it's too long already. I think we should give chance, and I will think again, Sadi, and tell you later.
Thank you very much, Lena.
Wonderful. Thank you. We have Lina next.
Yes, thank you, Alena, for this wonderful presentation. And I was wondering, because I had this idea a few years back, which I haven't pursued with the rigorosity it has. It is about how informality interacts with social norms, and because they, of course, informal behavior might arise when there are social norms that are actually that are known by some people, at least a network that can be as large as a town or as small as a group, a family, perhaps. But also there is this interaction between there is this path or trajectory between what is informal in some places and is understood as informal can be illegal in other places. And I'm wondering if there, perhaps in your mapping experience, there is the chance to have a look at that transition, or if you have thought about it, and what are your thoughts regarding that topic?
Thank you very much for this, Lena. Very important question. I wonder if I could share screen just for 1 second with you again. So this is just the slide that I didn't have a chance to show to you in time. Can you see it? So it's really a very common concern for us, because really we are talking about the slippery slope, and you are absolutely right. The boundaries between informality and corruption are very often blurred. And some people say that in certain context, small bribery or small payment, it's actually a gift and not a bribe, although it looks like bribe and moves like bribe, So it's really not an easy topic. So what we've done in the project, we created a very simple matrix, 2 by 2, which is constituted by legal and illegal, and ethical and unethical. And you find 2 corners in that matrix which are not relevant for the project. So when we are strictly speaking about drug distribution, which delegalized in a particular country and ethically disapproved by people in that society, and even people in that community, if you ask them abstractly rather than when they are desperate for a dose, then it's illegal and it's not our concern. Same goes for ethical and legal. We're not considering it. It might be informal, but that's not what we consider. For example, if you take the phenomenon of friendship, it could be legal and ethical, but it could be, use of friendship rather than friendship for getting things done, or for getting access, or for insider trading, or something else, at which point we see that those matrix borderlines, they are porous, and we need to be really threading around them quite carefully in a context-sensitive way, which is why context sensitivity is quite a big thing for me, which is why I never actually thought of creating an index of informality or anything like that, because contextuality actually prevents that line of thinking.
We have a few more minutes. I had one question, and then I see Enrique. Yes, this is fascinating, and based on my limited experience, but I am from Colombia and I have worked in the government there, and my impression is that this informality topic is central to most activities, I would say, like the political side, the private sector, almost everything. But my impression is that there, in contrast to other countries, like here, for example, it's like the informality is the rule everywhere, and then the state tries to enter a little bit in some places and tries to regulate some limited places, whereas in places like here you get the impression it's the opposite. The state has regulated most things, and then informality tries to creep in some restricted places. I was just wondering if you get a similar impression, or if you have documented or seen something like that.
Mm-hmm. It's an excellent question. You know, I feel like there is a trap in this question somewhere, but it doesn't quite get to me yet. But what I would like to say that my biggest surprise from the project is that I didn't expect informality to be found to the extent to which we have found it in the West. I also thought that, yes, sure, you know, in Russia, in Brazil, in Colombia, yay, let's go to an informal country, right? But what's amazing to me is that those forms of human interaction, they are actually universal, but they develop in a different way, in a different context. And of course, context is determined by political, economic, and legal framework, plus social norms, like Lina said. And that is really our sort of compass to see and to observe informality within you know, a wider frame. So what I suppose the most interesting finding that I would like to share with you, that, you know, I worked quite a lot with people from Switzerland, and they always told me, Aliona, there are no informal rules. The only informal rule is a formal rule. And that's how it is. And I always felt, you know, I don't think so. I don't believe that. And then I finally found an anthropologist, Lucy Colhin, who has written about the workings of a Swiss model of democracy from within. And there you see where informality lives. It's just a very different type of thing. Same thing in Scandinavia. You know, we've got the best governance systems there. How are they operating? On the point of denunciation to the local governance on your neighbors, vigilance, equalizing human potential at schools, never putting excellent marks to anyone because everyone has to be pressed back into the community. That creates a certain type of atmosphere, social norm, within which informality is conducive to good governance, but it's still there. And that is just fascinating, you know, those sort of our ways in which we think formal and informal as an opposites, but they're not really. And I think that's where the complexity lies.
That's wonderful, because yes, because some, in many circles it's assumed that some countries are very informal and that's bad, and some are formal and that's good, but this shows that it's not the case. Yeah, thank you. We have a couple of minutes for Enrique's question, and then we'll move on.
Yes, briefly, because for the sake of time, this has been really interesting. Just to let you know, and this is probably something we may discuss more in detail any day, Professor Restrepo, Lina, and myself, we were involved in a large-scale project studying the consequences of informality in multiple dimensions, in the labor market, in crime, in the prevention of crime, of course, and many others, the connection between informality in multiple domains and behavior. And this was a project we ran in Colombia for years with the very generous support of the World Bank. So I believe we will find time to tell you a little bit about this project and exchange some ideas. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Really looking forward to it. And I hope that maybe we'll find the way to represent your project in the Global Informality Project as well.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.